NASCAR is limiting teams to 3 charters per team. Now, if that's whether because of trying to get a new manufacturer in, that's just trying to keep the balance of power intact. That way, super teams don't exist anymore or whatever. But you can only have 3 charter teams other than the 2 teams that have 4 charters. Now, if Stewart-Haas Racing would have stuck around, they would have had 4 charters as well. I mean, they would have. They were a 4-car team up until they said they're done with NASCAR. But Rick Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, they have 4 cars still. And they are, quote-unquote, grandfathered in. NASCAR says they're okay to keep the 4 charters. But from here until we know it, other teams can only have 3 charters per team. And that got a lot of controversy and a lot of social media buzz saying that it's kind of unfair that Hendrick and Gibbs can kind of have an advantage by having 4 cars and nobody else can have 4 starting this year. Riley, I'll let you go first on this. Do you kind of think it's what do you think about the 3 charter per team rule, and do you think it's unfair that Hendrick and Gibbs is able to kind of keep their 4th charters under wraps?
Yes and no. As far as do I like the 3 charter thing? Not necessarily, because I believe that if a company wants to buy 10 charters and bring them and they got the money to do it, they should be able to. I do understand, though, that NASCAR has an obligation to put the best product out there for their fans, and if they think that 3 charters is the way to do that, then that's their prerogative. It's their field. They can make the rules for it, right? So I don't necessarily have a problem with limiting the amount of vehicles. I mean, they've done it since 2008. What? Whenever they went to 4, because Roush used to have 5 cars, and they told Roush, hey, starting, when these contracts end, and that's something we'll have to talk about as well, but they told Roush in 04, or not in 04, maybe it was 06, whatever year it was that they had 5 cars in the chase. 05. Hey, I understand you got 5 cars. You got 5 cars in there. We're not doing this anymore. 4 is the number. Once your contracts run out with these drivers and these sponsors, you're only allowed to field 4 cars. You can keep this 5th car until these contracts run out, but after that, you're done. And they told Roush a couple years ahead of time so they could plan and do
they didn't do that this time. So but say if Roush wanted to get another charter,
they can't.
They couldn't have.
Well, I mean, yeah, they can't, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with NASCAR saying 3's the number, but if you're going to say 3's the number, 3 should be the number for everybody. And I don't think that it's necessarily because, it's unfair and Joe Gibbs and Rick Hendrick are going to have an advantage now because they've had 4 cars. They've had 4 cars for the past couple years, and they're not winning championships. Penske, a 3-car team, is winning the championships. And so I don't necessarily think that 4th car means that much as far as performance. However, it does mean that much as far as money. And they may be making more money because they're fielding more cars, more competitive cars. So if you're going to...
you got to think, too, the money they're putting out to field a 4th car kind of evens out.
But if I do believe, personally, if Joe Gibbs was losing money, like hemorrhaging money because he's running that 4th car, he would quit.
And Joe Gibbs used to be a 2-car team up until
2010.
Was it 10? No.
Because they had the 18 and the 20.
2008 when they had a 3-car team, when Kyle Busch joined. Because it used to be the 20 and the 11.
That's right. And then the 18.
Yeah.
And then they put the
19 with Carl Edwards in 15. So they were only a 4-car team 9 years ago. Or this year, it'll be 10 years. We've been a 4-car team for 10 years.
And
Hendrick's been a 4-car. They were a 5-car team. They've been a 4-car team forever.
Since Jimmy, right? or since before Jimmy. It was
No, it was at Jimmy, 2002. Because he had 25, the 24, and the 5. That's what it used to be, 3 cars.
and then they brought the 48.
48 in 2002.
So, they've been a 4-car team forever. They ran a 5th car every now and again for a little bit.
Yeah, for rookies and stuff like that. Used to be running with Kyle Busch in 81, Chase Elliott with 25, stuff like that.
So, which again, they can still do. They're just not chartered members, running for points. And, again, I'm not saying that Hendrick or Gibbs has a competitive advantage because they have 4th cars. I don't believe that. But I do believe in fairness. And I think that if you're going to have a rule, the rule should apply to everyone. Now, I'm not saying that if you're NASCAR, you have to tell Joe Gibbs, hey, you have to fire these many people and get rid of this car right now.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make it 3 cars, you have to give them a deadline for them to downsize. Or, you can't make the rule because it's unfair, because if Jack and Brad and the guys at RFK wanted to start a 4th car, they can't, even though another team is doing it already. And, it just doesn't make sense why you would enforce the rule on somebody like that, but you wouldn't on Jack or on Joe or Rick. So it is what it is. I don't think it's really going to affect a whole ton, down the line. But I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get more teams, and they want more owners in the sport. And if you took a charter away from Rick Hendrick and Joe Gibbs, there's 2 charters that a new team could possibly buy from that team and bring another 2-car team, or 2 owners could get a 1-car team. And if that's the goal, then that's what they should do, or they just shouldn't implement the rule at all. But I don't know exactly why they've done it, but everybody signed it except for 2311 and Front Row.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm leaning towards this. Like, it is kind of unfair that Hendrick and Gibbs kind of have a leg up, car up, quote unquote, on the field, have a better chance to win races and get cars in championships and stuff like that with that extra car when nobody else can do it after this. But all these teams agreed on this agreement, except for, like you said, 2311 and Front Row, and they were 2-car teams. Penske's a 3-car team. You think of Stewart-Haas, Stewart-Haas doesn't count because they don't exist no more. I'm trying to think of another 3-car team of last year. Roush is a 3-car team, 2011 is now, but they weren't. Like, these teams had a chance to be like, oh, this is bullshit. And they didn't do it. So you can complain, but you can't too. It's you can have gripes about it and complain about it, but if you think about it, Gibbs and Hendrick has run the sport, quote unquote, for the past 20 years. And if you don't like it, you should do better and be able to compete with them better. Now, like you said, Penske's won the past 3 championships, but before that, it's been mainly dominated by Gibbs and Hendrick. You think of 2021, Larson won. 2020, Chase Elliott won. 2019, Kyle Busch won. 2018, Logano got that as the first one. That was an outlier. 2017, Truex won. Was Furniture Row, but it was kind of JGR equipment. But, Toyota based, TRD equipment, all that stuff. 2016 was Jimmy Johnson. 2015, Kyle Busch. 2014, Harvick, Stewart-Haas, which was Hendrick backed. 2013, Jimmy Johnson. 2012 was, go back to Brad and stuff like that, and you kind of get into the weeds a little bit. Before you get to Jimmy 5 straight back in 2006, 2010. So the sport's been mainly dominated by those 2 teams and organizations. So if any 2 teams deserve to have kind of be grandfathered in, it would be those 2 teams, especially Hendrick. If you're not a Hendrick fan, you don't like them, they carry a lot of the money in the sport, with their drivers and their sponsors. You think of Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr. back in the day. Now you think of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. Two of the three most popular drivers in the sport are those two guys. They do a lot for the sport and bring in a lot of money for the sport. So it's unfair, but you look at the results, you look at the track record, and you'll be like, okay, I get it. I don't like the rule, personally. I think it should just stay to 4. I don't know. I understand what NASCAR's trying to probably think of is trying to get more manufacturers into the sport by limiting these charters to 3 per team. But if a manufacturer wants to come to NASCAR, I think they're going to come regardless. I don't think limiting teams to 3 charters apiece, other than Hendrick and Gibbs, will change that fact. Because not enough of these teams have enough money to go to 4 cars. So really, it's a rule that's kind of unnecessary in my opinion, because I don't think it would have happened. I mean, the only team I could see that maybe would have done that would be Penske, just because of their success recently. But you think about it, only 2 of their cars have been really competitive the past 3 years. Since Brad left the 2 car, Austin-Cindric hadn't done shit. I know he's won 2 races, won the 500 3 years ago, and he won Gateway last year, kind of off of luck, fuel mileage. He was running good, but kind of got lucky in winning that race. Joey and Ryan Blaney have carried that organization the past 3 years. And you think that, will they want to even get a 4th car, considering their 3rd car always struggles? And Logano last year, he got lucky winning a race in Nashville, or else he probably wouldn't have been in the playoffs. Now, he put the money in the bank, cashed his money in the bank in the playoffs, and won some races and won the championship. But it's like there's not really any organizations that really compete week in and week out with Rick Hendrick and Joe Gibbs. So it's kind of a rule that I think is kind of unnecessary, and it's kind of just trying to, I guess, scare teams away from trying to get a 4th charter. Like I said, Penske would be the only one, maybe 2311 because of Michael Jordan and all his money he has. But they just got a 3rd. And they're going to see how 3 cars work. It'd be crazy for them to jump to a 4th if they could before they even see how a 3rd goes. So it's kind of just unnecessary. And I agree it's kind of unfair, but nobody said life was fair. And these 2 organizations have been carrying the sport the past 15 years. So if anybody deserves to have a little bit of a grandfather clause in, it would be those 2 organizations. So is what it is. But I think overall it's, I don't know. I hate the charter system.
Same.
I kind of hate it. I get it, but I hate it.